Eat meat and question everything with Courtney Luna. I was going to start chatting with you and it's like, okay, I'm going to start asking questions and we're not going to be recording. So much to dive into. I'm so excited. Coach Nat, back on the podcast. I was just looking. You were actually podcast number 3 when we first started. And I say we because I had Devin co-hosting with me.
Oh my gosh, that feels like forever ago now. How long
It
ago was that?
it wasn't. I mean, it had to have been probably almost 2 years because I've been 2 years carnivore in May, and I don't honestly know when we started it. So at least a year and a half.
Wow, that is awesome. It's so funny. I was just thinking about that interview the other day. And at the time, Devin was like super interested in the bodybuilding stuff. And she was asking all these questions. And you were kind of like, yeah, it's like all you guys. I'll let you guys kind of like have your little chat about that. And now you're ready to dive in.
Yeah, because Devin actually like introduced you to me, and she's like, we have to have her on bodybuilding. Yeah, like she was all in it. I'm like, okay, let's go. But so much to talk about today. How do we jam pack it all like in this time? I don't know how we will because you guys this morning had an amazing coffee chat and you only got to like, well, you branched out to other topics, but like you could have talked about it like all day long.
Oh, so easily. This is
So,
a topic I could just go on and on. So we're gonna have to just cut it off at some point, I'm sure.
yeah. Okay, so I feel like the majority of the people that are going to be watching this are, I mean, I feel like it's always comes down to weight loss, that there's so many of us who are struggling. I feel like especially just struggling to get the last, 10, 15, 20. I feel like in the beginning, the weight loss seems to be easy for a lot of people. Maybe not easy, but I mean, I've lost 55 pounds and it was fine. It worked. Here I am. And now it's like I've been at this place for like a year. So, give us all your tips and your secrets. Give us the magical answer that we are looking for to finally lose this weight. And I don't know if you want to jump right in on whatever comes to mind, but I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like macros. So is there an ideal, I know everyone's different and where you're coming from is different, but like, how do we figure out our weight loss macros and how do we get this weight off?
Okay, so what I have to start with is we've got to stop saying weight loss.
Fat loss, sorry,
It's
or
not
just
about
not
weight.
even at all.
Yeah, it's really not about weight. I mean, I'm fine with fat loss because I get it. Like when you have excess body fat on you, you want it off. I understand that totally, right? And we can get into like the seasons because that's another thing I've recently been talking about is the seasons that bodybuilders go through. And truly the seasons that we use throughout, it's not even necessarily 1 year, it could be a whole year in a season, but we have these seasons we cycle through, and that's how we get these like next level results that the average person doesn't get. And it's because we don't spend all of our time on fat loss, we don't spend all of our time on weight loss. We actually take time where we are strategically not trying to lose body fat and actually working on putting on lean mass. And that is something that most people and pretty much all women I've ever met in their entire lives have never done. And it's the one thing that if everyone took a season to stop trying to lose weight and not just stop trying to lose weight, right? Because usually what happens when you stop trying to lose weight, you start eating your face off and putting on body fat pretty quickly, right? So that's not what I mean when I say stop trying to lose weight, but strategically doing the right things to build lean mass, lean tissue. When people say lean muscle mass, there's no non-lean muscle. Like muscle is lean. So it's kind of a little misnomer, but usually you hear build lean muscle because women are afraid of getting bulky. But women aren't going to get bulky. I've been spending my last 10 years trying to get bulky, and it doesn't happen. So focusing on the lean mass would actually massively change the ease with which you would lose body fat. But most women are too afraid to ever do that. Wow, what do you mean? Actually eat so that I gain weight? Are you kidding me? because it always comes back down to weight. So I say all that to preface. We can talk a little bit more about that, like the reverse dieting process, why you would do it, when you would do it, and taking a building season, and what does that actually look like. But let's talk about what the fat loss, right? The fat loss piece, right? The first thing we need to do is stop chasing weight loss at all costs, just needing to see that number go down on the scale. The number one first step I would say to all people is, if you do not already know your lean body mass, if you don't already know your body composition, you have to figure out your body composition. And I don't care how accurate it is. Just pick a way to measure it. It could be calipers, the old school, like pinch, right? Which if you have a professional do it, those are actually probably more accurate than any of these scales. But there's not as many people doing that these days and actually going somewhere physically to have somebody do that for you. But calipers, you can just take your measurements and plug it into there's a Navy body fat calculator online, where if you just take your neck measurement, the smallest part of your waist, and the widest part of your hips, for ladies, it's usually the glutes, around the butt, those three measurements, and then I think it's your age, your weight, maybe your gender that it asks in addition to that. And if you know your body fat percentage, well, it will spit out an estimated body fat percentage based on your measurements. So that could be something if somebody's not using a scale. But you can get a cheap digital bathroom scale anywhere up to, we have the InBody I always forget, NH20 or something like that. I always forget what model it is. But we use that, and it gives us lean body mass, it gives us skeletal muscle mass, it gives us body fat percentage. But at least if you can look at your weight and your body fat percentage, it tells you something. And then if you have that body fat percentage, you can calculate what that means in terms of lean tissue and fat tissue, so fat mass and lean mass. That's the two pieces of the body fat percentage equation. So at least if you have those numbers, you have somewhere to start. Something we mentioned on our coffee chat this morning is that one thing, or actually we were just on with Stephen Thomas, the UK Carnivore, and I mentioned it there, that if there's one thing I would tell every client I've ever worked with, if I could go back and tell them 50 pounds ago, 100 pounds ago to do, it would have been to check their body composition. Because I can guarantee if they have lost a lot of weight and now they're stuck and they can't lose that last bit, it's because they've lost muscle. And they've gotten down to a point where their metabolism has adapted downward, down-regulated basically, and you cannot eat as much as you once could without gaining weight quickly. And the answer to that is building muscle. And that's when I would generally recommend at that point, let's go on a reverse diet and get into a build so we can set your metabolism up to be strong and sustain you through and make it so much easier to lose body fat. But the reason you struggle, everybody struggles with that last 10, 15, 20 pounds is usually because some of these things have been missed along the way. And for most people in the keto carnivore space, all of these things. And these are the main things: strength training, sending the signal to your body to build lean tissue, or at very least maintain it while you're losing body fat. That is the key right there. That is the main goal of a bodybuilder. Put on as much lean mass as we can in our off season or our building season, and then hold on to everything we achieved, because it's hard to do when you're in a deficit to lose body fat. You're in essentially a catabolic state. You're in a state where your body is using what it has on it to sustain itself, because you're not giving it enough energy, you're not giving it enough materials to build or maintain. So it's struggling to maintain while you are losing. So that's what bodybuilding really is the cutting season is just hold on to as much lean tissue as we can while we lose body fat. And how we do that: strength training, and then protein, adequate protein. And that is the number one thing when it comes to the diet that I see being done wrong in keto and carnivore spaces. We have this high fat and what they call moderate protein. It's not moderate, it's low. It is inadequate. Most of these calculators online, most of these programs that teach you how to do keto and carnivore, the protein is too low. And that's what's driving the metabolism down. And that is what's driving the loss of lean mass, which then we discover when we hit those plateaus. Plateaus are part of the journey. You're always going to hit plateaus. And it's actually one way I like to tell my ladies to think about it is that the plateau is not to be feared. Think about it like this, right? You lost 10 pounds. If you stay where you are, that means you were able to sustain that loss and stay at the new low. That's a powerful, like really positive sign that you're doing things right. If you started ballooning back up, now we're talking, there's a problem there, right? You want to maintain, you want to stop and maintain at a new set point. Your body's now established a new maintenance, and then you just have to drop again, and then you will, and then you'll hit another plateau. And that's hopefully the way it's working. You should be hitting plateaus along the way. But when you get to a point where you're like, it's been a year, it's been 6 months, it's been, longer periods of time, and I feel like I'm throwing everything at it. That was something we mentioned this morning, this feel like, right? I feel like I'm throwing everything at it and it's not working. It's time to look at those things. The strength training and protein are going to be the two biggest pieces to getting where you want to go at the after you've lost some initial body fat. And the truth is, this is the same things I'll talk about here will work for somebody who's got 100 pounds to lose. And if you do that early, then throughout the whole process will be a lot easier.
So if people say that they're losing like the whole 80-20 carnivore, like high fat and lower protein, like it's usually like around 90, people say that they lose weight on that and they don't the other way. Do you think that's because they're losing muscle? It's not necessarily they're losing fat.
100%. 100%. I mean,
So,
I'd like to see receipts. Like to see receipts showing me that that your body composition, that you are maintaining lean mass, because I can guarantee you that's what's happening in that case.
okay. Yeah, I definitely don't think a lot of people are lifting heavy even. I think and I want to get your thoughts on like workout classes. I'm trying to think like Caroline something starts with a G on YouTube. Like what is it?
Caroline Gervin.
Okay, so she does like iron whatever and it's lifting but and maybe not her specifically because I've only like done a few, I can't remember. But there's like lifting with like cardio. Where is that doing enough or do you need to just like stand there and lift heavy? It's not heavy enough, huh?
It's not. Okay, so most fitness classes or videos where it's a timed thing and you are lifting and you're doing it to a time, 9 times out of 10 is not going to be the kind of stimulus that you need to drive muscle growth, tissue growth. In some cases, it could be, let's say, you go to a really good CrossFit gym, right? They may be doing things that check the other boxes, like you need to be progressing in your training. If you're just going to a class at your gym that's the same class day in, day out, week in, week out, month, years, and you probably know a lot of these people who look exactly the same. They've been going to this fitness class for years. They look exactly the same. They're putting in the same amount of effort every time. So you're not actually asking your body to do anything. It's just, hey, get used to this level of activity. And guess what? Your body gets used to that level of activity. And now you can do the same level of activity and it's not going to drive any more caloric burn either. But that's what those classes are. It's really more about, it's more cardio. It's cardio with weights. You
Yeah,
got hands, but it's cardio.
right. Do you think that's beneficial at all? Like if you actually lifted like on your own and then maybe did this class, because I actually went to one of these types of classes probably a few months ago just to like mix things up, try something different while understanding that lifting is better. But do you think once in a while, like just to get that endurance and cardio is a good thing, or is it like don't even waste your time?
I would say, okay, so whenever I have clients that come to me who do things like that and they love it and they have this community there and it's like about so much more than just the cardio. It's not just them going to the gym, getting on the treadmill for an hour, right? But they have this great group of people and they have, it's so much more for them. Then I work with them and I say, okay, how many days are you willing to cut back to? Because ideally, really ideal for aesthetics, the way your body looks, which is the way we train for bodybuilding, is training a certain way, hypertrophy style, bodybuilding style training. So we're training in a certain range, we're training with a certain level of effort, so many reps and sets, and the way that we break up our workouts, and then it's progressive over time. And then we minimize or completely eliminate cardio if we're in a building phase. And then if we're in a cutting phase, we strategically use cardio really more for the caloric burn than anything else. It's like, okay, because ultimately what you don't want to do is just keep taking nutrition away from your body. Because we have to remember at the end of the day, food is not just macros, food is not just calories. Food is nutrition, it's micronutrition, it's vitamins, it's minerals, it's nutrients, it's all of these things that our body needs. So we don't want to just keep cutting until we're eating this teeny tiny one meal a day or nothing, right? Like our body's not going to get what it needs to thrive. So with bodybuilding, we practice, we cut, and then we'll add in some cardio. We'll cut, we'll add in a little more cardio. So we only use it as a tool to manage that energy expenditure to help continue that deficit. And a big reason why I went keto is because I hate cardio. And I didn't want to have to do what high carb bodybuilders do, which is they do a lot of cardio. You essentially have to do more cardio when you're eating a lot more carbs because you've got to burn through those carbs to get to the fat.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
it's interesting. It boggles my mind why that is the mainstream. I get it. Like that's literally all that's ever been taught in school in nutrition and fitness. So they just don't know another way. It's the old paradigm, but it's ridiculous when you think about it. They're eating a ton of carbs. They're barely eating any fat, and they're doing a ton of cardio. So with keto, I've never had to do as much cardio as my counterparts do in their preps. I do a fraction of it. And I don't put it in at the beginning. I add it in when it's necessary after I find my sweet spot with macros where I'm dropping. And then once we hit a spot, one of those plateaus, the decision is, do we cut more food or do we add cardio? And usually we don't add much of it until we get much closer to a show. So when I'm really having to throw more things at it. Now, I will say, going back to your question about the classes, right? It's just like if a person loves running. I've worked with runners before. I will say they always get better results when they limit those other activities, the cardio activities, especially the endurance ones. Long spin classes, hour-long spin classes, hour-long or more runs or walks or bikes. So when they'll tell me, oh, I do X number of miles, I always ask, how long does it take you to do that long? Because that's what matters more. I love a daily walk. I love leisurely walks. I'm a bigger proponent of let's get your daily activity to a certain level. Because when we're talking about being able to sustain the fat loss and the level of the physique that we build, it's going to be about our lifestyle. So when we change our lifestyle to where we're more active during the day, we just naturally get more steps in our day. That's something that when we're 60, 70, 80, we can still do because it's now just become a part of our lives. Whereas if it has to be going to a gym and doing an hour-long class, X number of times a week, are you really going to do that forever? Because you're going to have to if you want to maintain those results that you got doing that. So I would say weigh the pros and cons of like my mental health, right? Some people have activities they love for the therapeutic benefits of taking a run in nature or, something like that. Or having that community time with the people in the class. But definitely you would want to categorize it as a cardio activity and say, okay, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, maybe according to where I am in my cut, and how much extra activity I want to add on. But when we get into like long duration cardio, now it's actually going to take away from your goal of building and maintaining lean mass. Endurance style cardio, like I know you're talking about doing a marathon. I was like, I'm so glad I'm getting on here with her because
Well,
I'm like, girl, don't do it.
no, a half marathon, but I'm not even like sold on it. And for me, this isn't coming from like a tool to try and lose weight. Like
Yeah.
I'm aware that that's wouldn't be what would be suggested to me. It was just trying to do something different, doing something for my mental health, but I don't love it. And I haven't signed up for a race yet because I'm like, I don't even know if I totally want to. And I know I've put it out there and talked about it. So now part of me is like, well, I can't say I'm going to do it and then not. But yeah, I've always been resistant because I don't know. I mean, I know that like lifting weights is going to be better, and maybe doing some like sprints would probably be better than actually like running. So we're still playing around with this. Like I am open to you saying, Courtney, you shouldn't do that. And I will happily go throw away my running shoes.
Yeah, look, here's the thing is it's what it does is it teaches your body to pare down muscle. Because any sport that you practice, it's about getting better at that sport, right? So for endurance athletes, having a lot of muscle on your body is not going to make you better at running. It's not going to make you aerodynamic. It's got, right? It's like it's holding you back. So the body sees it as two competing priorities. So when you're pairing that, so whenever I have runners come to me, I always, okay, how much can I pull back on your running that will be okay with you? And I can also tell you this. I mean, I've worked with mountain climbers, all kinds of different athletes. And when they put that aside and they're like, okay, in my off season, I'm going to work with you and focus on strength training and focus on these things, right? They go back to their sport the next season and they are better at their sport. Because strength training makes you better at everything else, but everything else is not going to make you better at strength training, and everything else is not necessarily going to help with goals of body composition and muscle mass.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, Back to like macros though.
Yeah.
Is there like a guideline you can give us, or is there something like you shoot for like the like a certain like percentage? Like right now I'm eating, I guess like probably around like 65-35. So I'm higher protein than I am fat. What is your thoughts on fat? Because I know you and Bronson both talk about like stop eating all the fat. Like it's not a requirement to eat sticks of butter. And let me
Yeah.
just put it out there. I am not eating sticks of butter. I do have a few bites of butter a day because I love it. Like I'd rather eat it off the block than like cook with it or put it in eggs or whatever. So and this is like what's frustrating because people are even say like to all my butter videos, well, no wonder you're still fat. And it's like a couple bites of butter isn't going to keep me fat. There's a million other reasons why I'm still fat. But as far as like ideal macros or percentages, is there any guidance you could give us on that? How do we figure that out?
Sure. And for the record, I don't think you're still fat. First off.
Thank you. There's a little bit left, but it's being stubborn.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it is hard. Look, let me just affirm everyone who's trying to get that last bit off. It does get more difficult. It doesn't matter, even for me, every single time. And I've done this again and again and again. That last little bit is gonna be harder. The leaner you are, the harder it's going to be. Okay, so all right, macros. I never use ratios. I don't even know what my ratios are or what my clients' ratios are at any given time unless I were to take their numbers, their hard numbers, and actually like calculate it out because I don't use ratios. Ratios are also based on calories. You're starting with calories and you're figuring that out, and then you're figuring out your macros based on the calories. I work the other way around. So I take first off, I always, and this is for everyone out here who's not working with a coach who needs to figure out how to do this for themselves. The first thing you need to do is stop going to an online calculator and letting it tell you what your maintenance level is, what your deficit is, what your surplus is. It doesn't know. It's using a bunch of algorithms to spit out a number based on this data that you give it. It's a total guess, and it can be wildly inaccurate. So what I always ask my clients to start with is tracking what you're already doing. This is really hard when they come to a coach because they want to impress me. I do not want to be impressed. Like, impress me after I give you your macro targets and then you hit them perfectly. Beautiful. If you want to impress me, do it then. But, and people want to hide from the truth, right? Because it hurts sometimes to look at what you're actually doing. But I always say, start where you are. And if you ate a cookie yesterday, track the cookie. You got to look at the good, bad, and ugly. So look, with a person for themselves, doing it for themselves, you could do it for 4 weeks. I would highly encourage doing it as long as possible. When I'm working with people, we do it for a week or two because we got to get straight to it, especially if they're joining like a limited time program. With private clients, I could take a little bit longer, but I always start with baselining. So you just need to track what you're already doing, look at those numbers after a week or 2 weeks, look at what your averages are, because it doesn't matter what you do one day. It doesn't matter what you do 3 days. It matters what you did consistently over time. And here's a little nugget. When you're assessing your progress, it takes the body a good 10 to 14 days to really figure out what you're doing. So I did this yesterday and today this is what happened on the scale. And so whatever I did yesterday was magic and I need to keep doing it. Doesn't work that way. It's not that fast. Fat loss and muscle gain doesn't happen overnight. So along with tracking your food for at least 2 weeks, you need to be tracking your weight and your body composition daily, not weekly, not monthly, not throw your scale away. You actually need to look at the data every single day so that you can then look at, here's the average calories and macros, each of your macros for this week. Here's the average for this week. I have 2 weeks of data. And then here's on average what happened with my weight, my body composition, and for 2 full weeks. Here's a perfect example. I have been avoiding cutting, although my next stage date, I'm planning the end of this year in November. So I got to start this prep and I'm finally ready. So this week I'm baselining, or the last week I've been baselining. This week I'm going to continue baselining. I got kind of an average now over the last 2 weeks. I've kind of just let myself eat intuitively. And I just did this right before we hopped on. This was really helpful. So this past week, it was about 2,100 calories. And then the week before that, I can't remember if it was higher or lower now, because I was just looking at multiple different weeks, but it was like, I had a week that was about 1,700. Oh, that's what it was. I had a week that was about 1,700 calories. I thought that was my maintenance. I had the next week I was up to 2,000 on average. This past week, another 2,000 to 2,100 on average. After the week at 2,000, my weight dropped. Now, if I had only looked at that week, I would have said, oh, I wasn't eating enough. If I eat 2,000 consistently, I'll keep dropping. But this week's data showed me a different trend. After a full 14 days doing that, my weight went up higher than it was before.
The thumbs up.
Yay, weight went up. But this gives me now true data, because even 1 week of data is not really enough to see trends. If I was judging off of that and allowing my emotional brain to run the show, yay, I just wasn't eating enough before, so that means I need to eat more, right? This is the whole original thing. I got to chat today about why, when I eat more, I lose weight, and when I eat less, I don't. It's not that. It's just you're not looking at all the data. So now that I have 3 weeks I can look at, I can see, okay, when this changed and then it stayed higher consistently, my weight went up. And now I know that that was my threshold. That was where I started putting on weight, right? I also was looking at my body fat percentages and my numbers throughout all of that, right? Which my body composition pretty much hangs out at maintenance. So all that to say, track for a couple of weeks at least, so you can see what the trends are doing. Then you can see with what I'm currently eating, am I gaining, am I losing, or am I staying the same? Now you have your actual maintenance. Now you can figure out, okay, so this is what I'm doing this week. This week I'm baselining I'm taking those numbers, I'm going in between, I'm like, okay, 1900 seems like that's going to be my maintenance. So if I'm shooting for that level of calories, then I'm going to do that for a week and see what happens now. Is it stable? Does it go up? Does it go down? Now let's talk macros, right? So macros. So once you have that data, you have kind of a ballpark. Where was my protein, carbs, and fats? And where was my overall calories? Protein for everyone, for all of my clients, I always start with, okay, body composition. So what's your current weight? What's your body fat percentage? I like to look at what your lean mass is. So I calculate that out using body fat percentage. Or if they're tracking and it gives us an actual number of lean mass, I go by that. So I look at lean mass. Usually for most people, it's closer to body weight than lean mass. But it will be different based on whether you have a lot of body fat to lose or whether you're lean. So for myself, I'm living at my happy place, right? So I generally eat more than my body weight in protein in grams per day. So I weigh about 125 at my heaviest. And typically for the last couple of years, I've been eating 150 to 160 grams of protein a day. That would probably work out to be about 1.2 or 1.25 times my body weight or my lean mass. I can't remember now, but I don't really use those calculations so much. But I like, for a simple, easy way to understand protein by grams, right? Not ratios, ideal body weight in grams of protein. So where you want to be. Now, people can be totally off with what they think their ideal body weight is too. I have actually a whole workshop I did on like the calculations to figure out your ideal body weight based on your ideal body composition. If you're like, okay, I'd like to be around this percentage of body fat and I'd like to have this much muscle, then what is my true ideal body weight? And a lot of my ladies are surprised that it's higher than they think the number should be. So, you know, if most women love to see a lower number on the scale, so I would say take your ideal body weight and then probably add 10 grams of protein to that. And then that would probably be a better number, but somewhere between your ideal body weight and your current body weight in protein. Now, if you're a person who's like 40% body fat, you have like 50 pounds to lose. Now I would go closer to the ideal body weight than the current, because you probably just don't need that much. However, I will say this, it won't hurt. If you're a 200-pound woman and you're eating 200 grams of protein a day, it's certainly not going to hurt you. There's really no upper limit to protein. So you don't have to worry about protein turning into sugar and ruining your ketosis, whatever, all of that is garbage. So don't fear protein. Higher is not going to hurt. But I would say, you know, yeah, anywhere between that ideal body weight and your total body weight. So that I would do, forget about who cares what the ratio is. Set your protein there. If you're carnivore, set your carbs anywhere from 0 up to what negligible carbs you're comfortable with. For me, that's usually somewhere like 15, 20 grams when I'm carnivore. When I flex between having some more carbs, it might go up to 50 grams of carbs total, you know, or somewhere between 30 and 50. So I have different times where I do different things, but set your carbs where you want to set your carbs. And then I like to, this is the way Bronson does it that I really like as well, especially if I don't have data from somebody and like we don't have all that baselining done and I'm kind of just giving them something to start with, because sometimes, you know, people really struggle with tracking. And so I might be like, okay, let's just go off your body composition and kind of use this formula. We'll start there. And then once they start tracking, we can tweak it. So if I know nothing, we have no baselining, then I would say, okay, let's set the protein there. Okay, where are you comfortable with your carbs? Set those carbs. And then you want by grams, your fuel, your carbs plus your fat to equal your protein. So let's say you set your carbs at 20 grams, you set your protein at 150, take 20 out of 150, and then you go 130 on your fats. Start there and establish your trends. If you're gaining, that's too much fuel. If you're losing, you're already in a deficit. If you're maintaining and you want to lose, you're going to have to cut back on the fuel. If you want to keep those carbs right where they are, fat is the only thing we need to manipulate. And this is what I love about this process is it makes it so simple. Carnivore is amazing because you've got these variables set. Protein, carbs, set. All you have to do is slowly bring your fat down over time. Not drastically. Not cut it in half, right? Like what I see out there is just too much up and down and all around and then not consistent. So what we do is we stick with our macros. We get really close to that macro line within 5 grams on either side. And then we can see what the trend line is doing. If we're not losing, we're not in a deficit. So we pull that fat back by 10 to 15 grams. I never go, oh, cut 20, 30 grams of fat. I never even go that much. Simple, small amounts. Because 10 to 15 grams is a good 100, 150 calories. It's a little bit at a time. And we look for the sweet spot. Everybody has a sweet spot where they just start losing consistently. The other thing we need to not do is chase big fat loss all at once. Like, I want to see 5 pounds gone in a week. Like, no, that was water weight. That's cool. It makes you feel good, especially when you first cut carbs out, but you can't expect that to continue. And this is what I meant when I said it gets harder as we get leaner because the rate slows down. So you want to think healthy rate of fat loss, sustainable fat loss that you can maintain, 1% of your body weight per week. And that is aggressive. So for a 200-pound woman, that's 2 pounds a week. For a 150-pound woman, that's 1.5 pounds. You know, for somebody my size, I'd be lucky to get 1 pound a week off. And the rate is usually slower than that. Like when I say aggressive, 1% is amazing. So this whole concept, people see in the discussion boards these big numbers all the time, and they think that that's what they need to be doing all the time. And it just doesn't work that way. You might have 1 week where you don't lose at all, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's time to cut your fat more. Give it another week and see what happens. You might drop in that next week. Like I said, think in terms of 10 to 14 days at a time. Because then
Okay.
okay, I see what we're doing. Gotcha. All right, now I'm going to drop.
Okay. I have some questions. First though, I'm glad to hear you say like 1% because I get DMs where it's like, I've lost only 30 pounds in 2 months. I'm like, oh my gosh, like people just have the most ridiculous expectations because they see people lose 15 pounds in their first week, which I feel like can happen when you're morbidly obese and it's fluid and it's inflammation. Like you're not supposed to lose that like every week. Like
And 2 pounds of
one,
that was inflammation.
yeah, like 1 to 2 pounds is normal. Shoot, now I forgot what I was gonna say, but okay, so if like I feel like my macros are pretty good where they're at. My thing is I think where I blow it is I'll do good and then I'll just have one day where I almost just ruin the deficit that I've had all week. Is but you're supposed to be like a little bit hungry when you're cutting, right? Or should I mean that's kind of where I battle is like, oh, like I sometimes it is emotional eating, so I'll like check myself with that, but sometimes it is like genuine hunger. So do you ever allow yourself to go over if it's actual hunger depending on like your exercise that day, or is there any flexibility with macros that you do?
So there's a couple of things I do. So we might throw in refeeds,
Oh,
which
that's yes, I wanted to talk about that too.
yeah, refeeds are a great approach because they're calculated. It's not, oh, I'm gonna listen to my hunger because listen, yeah, like you're right. What you're doing when you're losing body fat or when you're trying to lose body fat is you're actually asking your body to take from its stores, right? How is it going to do it? Because you're starving it. So you're going to be hungry because you're literally starving your body. That's how you lose body fat. It's a process of starvation. If your body had everything it needed, it would just stay where it is. That's maintenance, right? So yes, hunger is part and parcel of the game. Now there are certain times like around our cycle, I don't know if you notice this, but like hunger gets really high. Interestingly enough, I get this question a lot about like, should you eat for your cycle, right? Here's what I tell people that kind of blows their mind. The reason we get hungry like right before our cycle what's happening with our hormones right then is that we're preparing because we think we're going to have a baby. Like our body thinks we need to get ready to have a baby, and then it doesn't, and then we bleed, right? So it's telling us to get fatter. Of course, we're going to get hungry because our body's like, hey, put on fat so we can protect this baby. It's like a different way to think about it. So when that happens, a lot of the time it's like, oh, this means I should eat more because this is the time of my cycle. Like I should eat more. Yeah, if you want to put on body fat.
Mm, that's good. So it's just something we should fight through then. Like, don't allow yourself that extra. Your body's
Yeah, it
tricking
depends on your
you.
goals, right? It depends on your goal. Absolutely. It's your body's not tricking you. It's just it's doing what it's supposed to do, right? There's nothing wrong with that,
Well,
but
tricking you in a sense that it's like it's telling you that it's pregnant, even though it's not yet or
right.
could
So it's
be.
like
Yeah.
it's supposed to, right? Like it's right, right, exactly that.
Okay.
So
So we shouldn't allow ourselves those few extra 100 calories.
well, here's a way that you can do it, right? So when you're planning your refeeds, and I usually don't use refeeds until a person has been in a deficit long enough that they need this. Like psychologically, some people physiologically, especially if you're super lean, like you're going to experience lower energy, worse mood, all of these biofeedback markers we track to see like what else is going on with you, right? When we start seeing those things suffer, your performance in the gym, your strength, your endurance, all these things, right? It's like, okay, let's do a refeed. But you can include these from the very beginning as a part of your strategy to say, okay, and this is something in the bodybuilding space, a lot of people do cheat meals, right? It's the same concept. It's just, I don't love the cheat meal way of doing it because it tells this emotional brain that, oh, I can eat whatever I want. Like it's a cheat meal. It's okay, right? It's like all this justification comes in. So I like refeeds much better because refeeds are calculated. So instead of just saying I'm going to listen to my hunger and eat until I'm no longer hungry, because especially at those ravenous times, ladies, it ain't going to stop. Like you're going to eat more and you're just going to want to eat more. And good luck if you're just listening to your body, right? But if you build in your refeed, let's say you know when your cycle is coming. God bless everyone before perimenopause because your girl is going through it, the early stages, and you just don't know anymore. You cannot time anything, and it's very frustrating. But if you can estimate when it might be coming, or you track it and you start to notice those symptoms of, oh, this is usually how I feel before my cycle, and I'm getting really hungry, do take your refeed there because here's what we do with refeeds. We don't negate your deficit. It's just one day where we bring fats up. And I like a good 20, 25 grams of fat. So let's say, right, you're in this deficit. And then one day you do an extra 20 or 25 grams of fat. That's like 200, 250 calories, something on one day, right? That's not going to negate a whole week of a deficit. If for 6 days of the week, you sustained where you were supposed to, and then you have this one bump, right? So you can plan that on a special occasion where you know you're going to want to have that ribeye instead of the filet or instead of the top sirloin, right? The fattier cut of meat, you're going out, for an event. That's the way I did it with one of my coaches way back the year that I got my pro card. It was he called it a keto free meal, which once again I don't like that concept. So it would be, and I was always very conservative with it, but I see people all the time in the bodybuilding space that just blow it on these free meal or cheap meal days. So we did that all throughout I think we did that from day one on that prep. This last coach I was with, we didn't do it until I hit a stall. We'd already been working together for 2 or 3 months before we ever did a refeed. So, know yourself, right? If it's like, I know I'm going to get 7 to 10 days into this cut, and I'm going to be over it. Like plan your refeed and then have your refeed. And it's kind of, you have to know yourself because if you get into the refeed and then you can't stop yourself and now you're refeeding for a whole week, like that's going to be a problem. But as a tool, knowing that you have that in your tool belt, it can help people stay more adherent during the week. And that's one of the most powerful reasons we use refeeds. Because if you're like, okay, I'm going to be on point all week because I'm really looking forward to that ribeye, or the extra bacon or whatever it is at the end of the week. And then I know after this one day, I may want to continue that because it was really enjoyable, but I know I'm going to have another one 7 days later. So you're kind of always thinking like, I don't have to just restrict myself from these enjoyable things forever. Which you don't have to do at all actually either. Like another little kind of pro tip, I include things that I enjoy in smaller amounts throughout my preps, throughout my cuts. So I'm not like, oh, I can't have. And then you're in this mentality, and that's what ends up like sending you off the rails some days, right? So if I want to include bacon or wagyu or like the fattier things when I'm cutting down my fats, I just have it in smaller amounts and I pair it with something leaner. And then that way I'm still really enjoying what I'm eating and I don't feel like, this sucks. I hate this
Yeah.
deficit.
Yeah. Okay, so the refeed you were just talking about was like almost like a once a week sort of thing. Now, are there longer ones you do? Like if someone has been actively losing weight for a while, do you do a longer refeed if they've hit a plateau, or what's the details with that?
Okay, so yeah, I usually like a good 7, 10, or 14 days for a refeed. So you could go 2 weeks, you can go 1 week, you can go a week and a half. You can basically, I like to base it on how the client is feeling. So are you experiencing those symptoms we talked about, right? Lower mood, energy, fatigue, brain fog, any of the typical things like, okay, now I'm feeling the effects of this, or just I'm gonna go off-roading if I don't have a refeed, right? So kind of judge for yourself where that needs to be, 7, 10, or 14. For the longer term periods, this is what we would call a diet break. So for instance, when we went on the low carb cruise, right? And we did a lot of traveling the last year that I was on a prep. And so pretty much every time we would travel, I would take a little diet break. This does not mean eat my face off, right? But it's leaning into more of the intuitive eating, allowing myself to eat when I'm hungry, stop when I'm full. And I use this term, I did an intuitive eating masterclass recently. What did I call it? Intelligent intuitive eating, something like that, right? It's not just instinctual. It's not just because once again, our signals can sometimes be crossed and we're not getting the signals from our body that we really should be getting, or it's sending the wrong signals, right? So it can lead us astray. But usually when I'm on those kinds of trips, because I love fatty meats, that's when I might have brisket or burger or, things out to dinner that I know would probably blow my macros on a regular day. But I'm going to do it within reason. I'm going to keep my intellect about me and know that I have education and knowledge about nutrition. And I know I can't just eat everything I want in sight, right? But I'm just not tracking. I'm
Yeah.
not tracking. I'm kind of allowing myself to eat intuitively. I might be allowing myself to eat more, or maybe some foods that I don't normally eat, but within reason. And then when I come back, I baseline again.
Oh, because
Just
things
go
could have
back.
shifted. Which brings me to, so I guess I accidentally did like a refeed sort of thing, or I guess it was more of a diet break. I did 6 months of tracking essentially, and I'm like, I'm burnt out. I need a break. But yes, it wasn't a free for all to eat all the things. I was just mentally whatever. And I maintained. I was hoping that I would like lose without trying, but at least I maintained. But
That's a fantastic thing that you
and
maintain that
it is.
rate. That's huge.
It is, and I think that gets overlooked too because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm stalled. I've been stalled for 6 months." It's like, but you also maintained the weight loss that you did, and that's huge because, a lot of people they lose weight and then they gain it all back. So, I definitely think that's an amazing thing, but since we're talking about this, this is kind of what started where I'm like, we need to talk about this is the whole I've been under eating, but I gained weight. And to me, it's never made sense to me. Like, I don't get it. And I hear people like, well, it's like a metabolism thing. Like, you've ruined your metabolism, so it's holding on. But I almost wonder, like, are you assuming you've been under eating because you're not tracking? I'm also assuming like you're not seeing yourself track and you're like, "Oh, here's me under eating because you would change that, right?" So my mind I'm like, maybe they're just assuming they're under eating and then they start tracking and then they lose because they're actually hitting their macros. But maybe it's bigger than that. I don't know.
Girl, you just hit the nail on the head. And this was the thing, when I watched your video with Jeff, he was saying that, and I was like, that's my boy. Like, that is 100% what's happening, is that people are not tracking. And here's the thing, if you are not tracking, you cannot tell me what you're doing and what the results are of what you're doing, because you don't even know what you're doing because you're not tracking. It's
It's
all
the I
based on
feel
how you
like
feel.
that you're saying.
Yes, feelings aren't facts. Get some data, get some receipts. Yeah, 100%. And this is why whenever I have a time where I'm not tracking, I always go back to baseline, even if it's just a week. Even if it's just a week, it's like, okay, we have to now establish the new baseline before we move forward. I can't just go back to whatever my macros were before. And I see this happen all the time. Oh my gosh. Oh, 3 years ago, I worked with a coach and this was the macros they gave me. So I'm going to go back to those macros because they worked. Yeah, they were the macros that were determined by a professional for your body, for your goals at that time, based on all the variables at that time. A month later, you might need different macros, especially years later. So like this whole concept of like going back to what worked before, like what worked before worked in that insulated situation with all of the particulars, all of the variables that you were going through at that point in time. So now we need to assess the situation for where you are right now and all the variables and set something new.
And when you're setting those, are things changing when you're working out, or those are your macros regardless if you've worked out or it's a rest day? Like that's just what they are.
Yeah, I'm not a big proponent of the eat more on your training days and eat less on your rest days. I will say this, a lot of the time, for me personally, and for a lot of my clients, we actually, if we were going to undulate calories or undulate macros, um, meaning having higher macro days and higher lower days, right? And typically this would be a fuel thing, right? Higher fat, lower fat days for us, right? In the carb world, they're doing carb cycling, so they're doing higher carb and lower carb days. That's just because carbs are their preferred fuel source. For us, it's fats. So you could certainly do that. And this is another strategy you could use from day one to say, you know what, I'm going to set myself a range that is a deficit. Some of it is a deeper deficit, some of it's a slighter deficit, closer to maintenance. And then some days I'm gonna let myself be a little more intuitive. Some days I'll eat a little less, some days I'll eat a little more, but I'll be in this range. And that way you kind of have some flexibility based on how you're feeling and what your body needs, right? So for me and a lot of my clients, a lot of the time we actually want more food on our rest days. The body's recovering from all that work. And this is something a lot of people don't know, but what you do in the gym is breaking down your muscles. What you do in recovery, that's where your muscles are actually building. So more training and not taking days off, it's actually hurting you because it's keeping you in this catabolic state. It's breaking down, breaking down, breaking down. This is why more is not better when it comes to exercise. It's not like, oh, let me do twice a day for 7 days a week. Like you will burn out real fast. So we need that recovery time. So the body's doing a lot during that recovery time. And so it's going to use a lot of those nutrients from the day before and the days before on that recovery day, on that rest day. So it may not be that you need more on your training days. You may need more on your rest days. And also we have life, right? We're not doing this in a lab. We have busier days and we have chill days. Like the days that we are busier, we're not hungry, right? Because we're not thinking about it. We're running around and then, oops, I missed a meal, right? On the days that you're like sitting around, it's like, oh, the fridge is right there, right? So if you allow yourself that flexibility, as long as you're not blowing it and blowing your deficit, that's another way to, there's kind of no wrong way to do it. Unless you're dropping your protein really low. so,
Yeah.
so in that range, that's why you would want to set your macros and say, okay, I'm going to have a range for my protein. Although really, I like to just set a target that is the floor for your protein. Like when we set that protein at your ideal body weight or your total body weight or wherever you set it above that, that's the bottom, and always strive to hit that at minimum. And then with fat, that's where you can make your fat arrange and say, okay, on my, on the days where I'm hungrier, I'll have a little bit more fat. But then one more thing you can throw in when you're really ravenous, especially around that time of the month, lean into the protein, because eating more protein is not going to put more fat on your body, but overdoing it on fuel absolutely will. So if you're still, you had your refeed and that really didn't do it for you, lean into protein, have more lean protein.
Okay.
Allow yourself to go over your protein on that day too, instead of just refeeding with fat, also do an extra 20 grams of protein, because of 20 grams of fat and 20 grams of protein, or even more, 30, 40 grams of protein, that's going to be super satiating, the two of those together. And it's not
Okay.
going to.
What are your thoughts on throwing in PSMF days here and there? I know it's such a hot topic. To me, it almost makes sense in a way, as far as like, what if you did it like once a week just to like shake things up? Or is that not the answer, that it should just be more consistent during the week?
Okay, so it really depends at this point on your body composition. The person with more body fat, PSMF can be an amazing tool because you have plenty to pull from. But the leaner person, we're talking that last 10 pounds, PSMF can really be a struggle. If you're only doing 1 day a week, you could do it. You certainly could do it. Here's where I would do it. If you are a leaner person and you want to do PSMF, it would be a great tool to use when your macros are already getting kind of low, and really let's just say fat, right? Because we're keeping protein high already. So your fat's getting kind of low, you're suffering a little bit, you're not really enjoying it, right? And you're like, you know what? If I did one PSMF a day, a week, excuse me, not a day, one PSMF day per week, then I could keep my fats higher the rest of the week. And I would enjoy that so much more. I can get through 1 day, but I don't want to have to cut my fats low all week. That would be a strategy you could use for sure. Because
Okay.
once all that really matters is, what did you do over 7 to 10 to 14 days?
Yeah, it's that average of the week or so. It's not so much the day-to-day thing. Um, okay, is there anything else you want to touch on that we didn't, like, in this realm?
Let's see. We touched a little bit on strength training.
So is
Um,
that the answer for us to lose these 10 pounds? Just go harder, lifting weights, stick to your macros the best you can, and the
it's
rest will come off? Because this is pissing me off, this last 10 pounds. And I feel like, okay, here we go. I feel like okay, I'm realizing what I'm saying, but I do my best in the gym to lift as much as I can. And my husband's like, you could always go harder. I'm sure we could all go harder. I do better when someone is there with me. For the most part, I stick with my macros. I do have some wonky days that I think probably might be ruining it. So I'm just thinking, for me and the rest of us that have 10 pounds left to lose, because it's so frustrating. I feel like some people get to their goals so easily. Like, they're just like, oh, I forgot to eat here and there. I ate some steaks and I'm at my goal. But there's a lot of us, I feel like, struggling. Any magical advice for that last 10?
Yeah. Well, first, I would say that in retrospect, it always seems easier. So those people who are sharing, they're sharing from now the perspective of getting there. And I'm sure that they had some struggles along the way too. So you're not alone, and you're not weird, and you're not abnormal, and there's nothing wrong with you. But I would say the simple things are strength train and protein, and pull back. Yeah, protein.
For those that
Um,
are only listening, her hand things keep giving us thumbs up and balloons.
Yay for Max. Um, and then you may want to play with some of these more advanced strategies, the refeeds, the diet breaks, the undulating, that fat, having lower and higher fat days. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that is going to work for you is what you can stick to. So if you are having these days where you're not sticking to things, that's when you have to sit down and ask yourself, why? Why am I off-roading? What is going on there? There's probably a lot of justification happening in your mind. that you're not present to. And as long as that continues, you can set your macros wherever you want to, but if you're not going to hit them, right, it's not going to work. So get present. This is my main thing, honestly, beyond everything else, because I love to talk about the athlete mindset and how we think about things. You do not want to let a thought that you think go by unchecked.
Hmm.
But when you're going to grab the food, the snacks, right? Because it's always the snacks. Generally, our meals, and we're like, okay, I can hit my macros. I got my meals all planned, and then we go snack in the middle of the day or in the middle of the night, right? So it's the snacks. It's take a pause before you go grab that thing. There is something emotional going on. You are bored, you are stressed, you are overwhelmed. Identify the emotion that you're feeling and then what you actually need in that moment, because the food is not going to help. It'll be a momentary pleasure that will give you a momentary relief. And then the problem is still going to be there, whatever the emotion was, it's still going to be there behind the food. So, you can have the perfect plan, but if you don't follow it, it's not perfect.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And yeah, I feel like snacking is probably always an emotional event. Like if you're hungry to snack, then have a proper meal. I think we're definitely reaching like outside of ourselves, not wanting to like sit with our feelings or we are stressed. Like essentially we're using these snacks as a pacifier to help us ease some emotion or get that dopamine hit. So yeah, I was recently talking with my friend Britt, and I forget who said this, not to her, but who talked about maybe Bickman or something, how important it is to fast between our meals, even if it's just lunch and dinner or breakfast, lunch and dinner. Like keep those clean, like just sit down and have your big meal so you're full and satisfied enough to get you to the next one and not be grazing all day. Like she even says we're not toddlers. You don't need to eat every 2 hours. So
Absolutely, especially when you're not eating sugar because you don't have to balance your blood sugar. There's no reason to eat throughout the day. Honestly, if everybody just instituted that one rule that I will only eat when I'm eating a meal, when I'm composing a meal and sitting down and eating it, it would probably eliminate all the issues, all the struggles. But
yeah.
it's the commitment to that, and then it's checking the thoughts that are telling you to go snack. And it's funny, I love that you use the term fasting between meals, because I was going to say if I would end on anything, it would be stop the extended fasts. It's completely, not only is it unnecessary, but it's counterproductive, because nothing will eat away at your muscle mass faster than not giving your body any nutrition.
Okay. Now you mean like longer ones or even just intermittent fasting? Because like for me, it's hard for me to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's hard for me to stick to my macros. So I like to push my eating window off just so I can stick to them. Is that not a good idea?
Well, it depends on how you're doing it. Here's how I would recommend it. Eat breakfast by 10 a.m. and finish eating by 6 p.m.
Okay. That's kind of what I do.
Right? So what I don't want women doing is waiting until afternoon to eat their first meal, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be snacking at 11 o'clock at night, or whatever time you go to bed, you're going to go get snacks before you go to bed, because this whole like deprive my body for the whole beginning of the day when it needs energy for the day. And then eating close to bedtime when your body doesn't need any more energy. It's actually the time you're supposed to be winding down and going to sleep, right? So when you're thinking about, especially the fats, right? I just had this chat with a client the other day who was struggling with her energy for her workouts, and she's been in a building phase, so this should not be an issue for her. She shared her journal, and it was a lot of protein earlier in the day and like a smaller percentage of her fat for the day. And so she was almost at her protein for the day, but she barely had her fat. So I was like, okay, this means, and she'd had 2 meals by then before her workout. I'm thinking to myself, okay, this means now you're going to be eating the bulk of your fat at night when your body doesn't need any more energy for the day. And you're depriving your body of energy throughout the day. So we just need to front load the fats. And that's a good strategy I like to use, is have a higher fat breakfast, because that's going to give you energy to use all day, and then taper down the fat so your last meal of the day is the lower fat meal when you just don't need as much. You don't need
Yeah.
to put energy in your body, more fuel in your body.
And I can attest to that because even just a few days ago, we were at the gym and they have like a little cafe. I grabbed some hard boiled eggs and some chicken after. And like, okay, felt good for a minute. An hour later, I'm like, I could eat a whole block of butter right now. Like it's so, I totally felt it. I'm like, that wasn't like, it's like the fat that, yes, protein helps, but it's the fat with it that's going to keep you
With it.
satiated. And yeah, it wasn't satisfying enough. And then that made me think, okay, well, maybe the PSMF isn't really the best idea because I couldn't even go a couple hours without wanting to eat butter.
I will tell you, I mean, I've done it the way you don't want to do it when I was getting close to a show and I thought I wasn't going to come in time. And so I did like 6 days of PSMF in a row and I could not go to the bathroom. I was moody. I was tired. It was hell. And I would never encourage somebody to do it more than one day in a row. If you're going to do 2 days a week, spread them out by 3 or 4 days in between. But yeah, if you're gonna do it at all, like one day and just knuckle through it, but I don't think it's going to have you more ravenous and unhappy because you're not giving your body what it wants. So I love protein and fat, real food meal, first meal of the day. So for my ladies out there who are doing these fatty coffees and then not eating for until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're doing your body a disservice. Give it nutrition. You're not getting any nutrients from coffee and heavy cream.
Yeah, you're just buying time to not eat.
And then you're filling yourself up with the fat, so you're not hungry, so you think this is a good thing, but now you've given yourself no micronutrition. And you're getting halfway through the day with no nutrients and no protein. And that first bolus of protein in the day is the most important one, the one that breaks your fast. So that's the one I would actually make it, not just the fat higher in that first meal, but protein too. Make that a nice hearty breakfast. So many women are afraid to do that because they all say, oh, when I eat a big breakfast, then I'm hungry all day. Make it bigger. Make the
Mm.
breakfast even bigger, and then you will not be hungry all day.
That's actually interesting because that's where I struggle is if I do eat breakfast, then I feel like for me it opens the floodgates of eating and it's like it's on, but yeah, maybe I need to eat even more and be super satisfied. I'm going to play around with that. And because I've always said, like, it's hard for me to do an intermittent fasting window like early in the morning, like eating like from 10 to 2, or sorry, like 8 to 2 would be hard for me to stop at 2. So I always push it the other way, even though I know, the experts say that you should have breakfast. But that might be easier if I'm eating way more in the morning than in the afternoon. So that's interesting. I'll have to play around with that.
Yeah, and I have no problem with a 16-8. I like anything from like 12-12, you know, uh, what is it, 10-14, or 16-8. Like where it goes wrong is when you're forcing yourself to fast. Like if you're now struggling against this clock and like wrestling with the clock, you're causing all this undue stress in your
Mm.
body. And that's another thing, like all the emotional stuff, it manifests physiologically. So when we're obsessing and we're stressing about every little thing, it's detracting from our ability to relax and let it go. And then the body will I'm so glad I remembered to bring this up here because I wanted to mention I've had women going through like traumatic events in their life and they have this massive emotional release. Like they just let themselves cry and they haven't cried in like years. And then they drop 4, 5, 6 pounds on the scale the next day. It's like it was just being held in the body. So make no mistake that when we are like fighting and focusing so hard on this stuff, it's like it gets to be as easy or difficult as we decide it is. Sometimes we're addicted to stress.
Hmm.
And we make things out to be a bigger deal than they need to be. And so think about the way you're thinking about your diet and your macros and tracking and all of that. I hear all the time, like, oh, I couldn't track. It's too stressful. It's not even a thought in my day now. It just happens automatically. And anything new to you is going to feel difficult at first, right? But what are you making it mean? That's a bigger question. I ask this a lot to my clients. What are you making that mean? What do you make the scale weight mean about you? What are you making it mean that you're tracking your oh, I have to this and I have to that? And take that word have to out of your vocabulary. I get to. I'm blessed that I have the ability to choose what I want to eat. I'm blessed to have the ability to be able to afford steak, right? Whatever it might be. Like, we've got to change the association and the meaning that we're putting behind things. How beautiful that I have enough time and space in my life that I can actually think about macros. Like, that's a first world problem.
It really is. Yeah. And it's such a good point. I mean, yes, stress is a killer. And yeah, it could totally ruin your progress too. Some things we just need to like calm the fuck down. And I love because you also, because I've been in one of your little programs before, you work on mindset too, because it is so much more than just moving your body and eating your macros. Like mindset is huge. And I love that you bring that in too. So speaking of your coaching packages, tell everyone where they can find you and what offers you have.
Absolutely. So on Instagram at the Keto Bikini Pro and on YouTube and Facebook at Keto Bikini Secrets. NatalieJGrasso.com is my website. You can get that link on any of my socials. Right now, we just kicked off our summer Shape Up Challenge. This is the annual challenge I do once a year. It is the big one that I do every year. It's a $5,000 value to grand prize. We're giving away this time coaching, not just with me. There's a spot with me, a spot with my assistant coach one-on-one. And then we're giving away at least one spot in our Keto Bikini Academy through the end of the year after the challenge. So the challenge is running July and August. You can still get in late. We just, last week was our baselining week, but you would just come in and we can baseline when you come in. So I did leave the enrollment open. So that'll run July and August, and then we'll reopen our regular Academy membership, which is basically macros, training. You have your whole training program to follow, coaching in the group setting, Zoom calls. We do a lot of education, a lot of mindset work in there. So it's incredible. And our community is just absolutely amazing. The women in there are truly a sisterhood. So that's what we're doing right now. I do still offer one-on-one coaching at the premium level. So if that's something that someone feels they could benefit from a more personalized approach, they can work with me. And now we also have spots open with Coach Mary Grace, who is my right hand. And we also are offering that option inside the challenge this year as well. So you could do the VIP enrollment and you would get private coaching with Coach Mary Grace along with that. So we would love to have y'all in the Academy. I would love to have Courtney. I told her I would love to work with her anytime.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, we're gonna have to chat after this. I'm a one-on-one kind of person. I need all the hand holding and babysat and yeah, so we will talk more after this. But thank you so much for being here and sharing all your tips with us, and I really appreciate it.
Sure thing. And hey, tomorrow night, Monday, I don't know when this is going to air, but
Tuesday.
oh, awesome. Okay, so the replay is always shared, but I do my free Monday master classes every Monday on YouTube. So we're talking about intuitive training
Oh, cool.
tomorrow with the replay will be live when you're watching this.
Awesome. Yeah, check out all her replays. She does master classes, well, you just said once a week, right? And they're so informative. I was watching some last week, and that's kind of what sparked some of these questions too. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.